leave when they don't value you. Life is too precious to spend in places where you are not valued, appreciated, or respected. Every one of us was born with inherent worth, and we carry a unique light that deserves to be nurtured, not dimmed. But sometimes we find ourselves in situations, whether in relationships, workplaces, or communities, where that light is ignored, taken for granted, or even extinguished. And when that happens, the hardest but most necessary step we must take is to leave. Your value is not something that can be determined by someone else's opinion or the way they treat you. It is intrinsic, woven into the very fabric of who you are. From the moment you came into this world, you were worthy of love, respect, and kindness. But life has a way of making us forget this truth. Through experiences, relationships, and challenges, we sometimes internalize the idea that our worth is tied to how others perceive us. We measure our value by the feedback we receive, the attention we are given, or the validation we seek. But this perspective is flawed, and it robs us of the ability to fully embrace who we are. When you begin to recognize your worth, you step into a powerful realization. Your value doesn't fluctuate based on circumstances or other people's opinions. It remains constant, like an unchanging truth. Imagine a diamond. It doesn't lose its worth because someone fails to see its brilliance. Similarly, your value isn't diminished because someone fails to appreciate you. It's not your job to convince others of your significance. Your job is to understand and embody it. You were created with unique gifts, talents, and a purpose that no one else can replicate. This individuality is a testament to your worth. No one else can bring to the world what you do, and that is something to honor and protect. Recognizing your worth often requires unlearning. It means shedding the beliefs you've picked up from years of being told you weren't enough or comparing yourself to others. It's about rejecting the idea that you must prove your value through achievements, relationships, or external validation. Instead, it's about looking inward and understanding that your worth simply is. It exists in your authenticity, in the way you show up for yourself, and in the love you extend to others. It's in the small, quiet moments where you choose kindness, perseverance, and courage. These are the things that define you, not someone else's inability to see your greatness. The challenge in recognizing your worth often lies in the moments when you feel unseen or undervalued. It's easy to doubt yourself when the people around you fail to acknowledge your contributions or dismiss your efforts. You may question if you're doing enough, if you're good enough, or if you're even worthy of their recognition. But these doubts stem from external noise, not internal truth. The people who fail to value you are often preoccupied with their own limitations. They may not have the capacity to appreciate the light you bring because they're too focused on their own shadows. This has nothing to do with you. Their inability to see your value says more about them than it does about you. When you truly recognize your worth, you no longer seek approval from those who can't give it. Instead, you start to set boundaries that protect your peace and your energy. You stop settling for less than you deserve, because you know that staying in situations where you are undervalued diminishes the fullness of who you are. Boundaries are not about shutting people out, but about preserving your well-being. They allow you to remain true to yourself without compromising your value for the sake of someone else's comfort. Recognizing your worth gives you the courage to enforce those boundaries, even when it feels difficult. Recognizing your worth is also about cultivating a deep sense of self-love. This is not the superficial kind of self-love often portrayed as indulgence or ego. True self-love is about accepting yourself, flaws and all. It's about being gentle with yourself when you make mistakes and celebrating yourself when you achieve even the smallest victories. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness and respect you would offer to someone you deeply care about. When you love yourself in this way, you no longer tolerate environments or relationships that undermine your sense of worth. You begin to attract people and opportunities that align with the respect and value you give to yourself. Sometimes, recognizing your worth requires stepping away from things that no longer serve you. This could mean ending a toxic relationship, leaving a job where you're undervalued, or distancing yourself from environments that drain your energy. While these decisions are rarely easy, they are necessary. Staying in situations where you're not valued can erode your self-esteem and keep you from reaching your potential. Leaving, on the other hand, is an act of self-respect. It's a way of saying, I deserve better, and then taking the steps to create a life that reflects that belief. It's important to remember that recognizing your worth is a journey, not a destination. There will be days when you feel confident and secure, and there will be days when you doubt yourself. Both are part of the process. What matters is that you continue to remind yourself of your value, especially on the difficult days. Surround yourself with people who uplift you in environments that nurture your growth. Seek out experiences that affirm your worth and challenge the beliefs that hold you back. As you walk this journey, you'll notice a shift. The more you recognize your worth, the more you'll see how it transforms your life. You'll start to make choices that reflect your value, and those choices will lead to greater peace, fulfillment, and happiness. You'll stop giving your energy to people and situations that don't reciprocate it, and you'll invest it in things that bring you joy and meaning. This isn't just a benefit to you, it's a gift to the world. When you fully embrace your worth, you inspire others to do the same. You become a living example of what it means to honor oneself, and that kind of authenticity is contagious. So never doubt your value. Even in moments when it feels unseen or unappreciated, hold on to the truth that you are enough, exactly as you are. Recognize your worth not because of what you do or what others say, but because of who you are. You are valuable, you are worthy, and you are deserving of all the good things life has to offer. Stand in that truth and let it guide you to the places and people that celebrate the brilliance of who you are. Evaluating the environment you find yourself in is one of the most critical steps in understanding whether it aligns with your worth, values, and purpose. Every space you occupy, whether in relationships, workplaces, or social circles, shapes the way you see yourself and the energy you carry. Sometimes the very environments we invest in can subtly erode our sense of self, leaving us feeling drained, unseen, or unappreciated. These moments demand an honest assessment of where you stand and whether that space truly honors who you are. To evaluate an environment effectively, you must first pay attention to the patterns. Patterns reveal truths that individual moments can obscure. Is there a consistent lack of respect, recognition, or support? Do you find yourself repeatedly explaining your value, seeking acknowledgement, or justifying your presence? These patterns are not mere coincidences, they are indicators. They highlight how the environment views you and, more importantly, how that environment aligns or fails to align with your worth. An environment that doesn't value you often reveals itself through subtle signs. It could be a workplace where your contributions go unnoticed or where others take credit for your efforts. It might be a relationship where your needs are consistently overlooked and your feelings dismissed. It could be a friendship where you are always the giver, but the receiving end feels like a void. These signs, though they may seem small at first, accumulate over time and create a space where your self-esteem begins to erode. Paying attention to these signs is not about being overly critical, but about being honest with yourself. Evaluating your environment also involves assessing how it makes you feel. Do you feel energized and inspired, or do you feel drained and depleted? Do you feel celebrated for who you are, or do you feel like you're constantly shrinking yourself to fit in? Your feelings are powerful indicators of whether a space is conducive to your growth or if it is stifling you. When you feel consistently undervalued, it's a sign that the environment may not be serving your best interests. Another crucial aspect of evaluating an environment is observing how others respond to your boundaries. Healthy environments respect your boundaries and honor your needs. If you set a boundary and it's met with resistance, dismissal, or retaliation, it's a clear red flag. Environments that don't value you will often push against your boundaries, attempting to minimize your voice or your needs. This kind of resistance is not something to ignore. It is a sign that the environment may not be capable of the mutual respect that healthy spaces provide. Sometimes, evaluating an environment requires stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. Ask yourself, is this space helping me grow? Is it challenging me in ways that align with my goals and values? Is it nurturing my well-being? Or is it creating unnecessary stress and self-doubt? These questions can help you see beyond the day-to-day interactions and understand the overall impact the environment has on your life. It's not just about the individual moments, but about the cumulative effect they have on your mental, emotional, and even physical health. Evaluating your environment also means acknowledging the role of reciprocity. Healthy environments are built on mutual respect and contribution. If you find yourself giving significantly more than you receive, it's worth considering whether the imbalance is sustainable. Relationships, workplaces, and communities thrive when there is a balance, when everyone involved feels valued and appreciated. If you are the only one investing energy, time, and effort, it can quickly lead to burnout and resentment. This imbalance is often a clear sign that the environment is not valuing you in the way it should. An important part of the evaluation process is recognizing when loyalty is misplaced. It's natural to feel a sense of attachment to the spaces and people you've invested in, but loyalty should never come at the expense of your self-worth. Staying in an environment that doesn't value you out of a sense of obligation or fear of change only prolongs the harm it causes. True loyalty is reciprocal. It is rooted in mutual respect and appreciation. If that reciprocity is missing, it's not loyalty, it's self-sacrifice. Fear often plays a significant role in staying in environments that don't value you. Fear of the unknown, fear of confrontation, or fear of being alone can make it difficult to evaluate your environment honestly. But staying in a space that diminishes your worth is far more damaging than facing the uncertainty of leaving. Growth often requires stepping into the unknown, trusting that there are better opportunities and healthier environments waiting for you. Fear is not a reason to remain, it's a challenge to overcome. Evaluating an environment also means seeking out alternative perspectives. Sometimes we become so immersed in our circumstances that we lose the ability to see them clearly. Talking to trusted friends, mentors, or even professionals can provide valuable insights into whether your environment is truly serving you. These perspectives can help you see patterns you might have missed and give you the clarity needed to make informed decisions about your next steps. Ultimately, evaluating your environment is an act of self-respect. It's about recognizing that not every space deserves your presence and not every relationship deserves your energy. It's about prioritizing your well-being and aligning yourself with spaces and people who honor your worth. This process may be uncomfortable, and it may require difficult choices, but it is necessary for your growth and happiness. Recognizing when your contributions and efforts are being overlooked or undervalued is a pivotal step toward reclaiming your self-worth. It is not uncommon to find yourself in situations where your input, ideas, or sacrifices are taken for granted. These moments, though subtle at first, often become more apparent over time, leaving you with a lingering feeling of insignificance. The process of identifying these moments requires a deep sense of self-awareness and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths about the dynamics in your environment. When your contributions are overlooked, it can manifest in various ways. It might be as blatant as someone else taking credit for your hard work, or as subtle as a lack of acknowledgement for the effort you've poured into a project, relationship, or situation. These experiences can create a sense of invisibility, as though your presence and contributions don't matter. Over time, this can erode your confidence, making you question your abilities and worth. Recognizing this pattern is essential because ignoring it only allows it to persist and grow, further damaging your sense of self. The first step in acknowledging when you are being undervalued is to take an honest inventory of your experiences. Reflect on moments where you felt unappreciated or dismissed. Are these isolated incidents, or do they form a recurring pattern? Patterns hold significance because they reveal whether undervaluation is a one-off mistake or a systemic issue in your environment. Identifying these patterns requires paying attention to the details, including how others respond to your input and whether there is a consistent lack of recognition. It is also important to pay attention to how undervaluation makes you feel. When your efforts are overlooked, it can lead to feelings of frustration, resentment, and even self-doubt. These emotions are valid and serve as internal signals that something is amiss. Your feelings are not just reactions to external events, they are indicators of whether your needs and boundaries are being respected. When you feel repeatedly disrespected or disregarded, it is a sign that the environment you are in may not align with your worth. Overlooking contributions often happens in environments where people are more focused on their own needs and agendas than on fostering mutual respect. These dynamics can occur in professional settings where bosses or colleagues fail to recognize your achievements, or in personal relationships where your emotional labor and support are taken for granted. In either case, it is essential to evaluate whether the imbalance is something that can be addressed or if it is a deeper issue that reflects a lack of mutual respect. Another key aspect of recognizing undervaluation is observing how your contributions are treated compared to those of others. Are your ideas dismissed while similar suggestions from someone else are celebrated? Are your efforts treated as an expectation rather than something to be acknowledged and appreciated? Comparing these dynamics can help you gain clarity about whether the environment values you or merely tolerates your presence. It is not about competing with others, but about understanding whether you are being treated with the respect you deserve. It's also worth considering the responses you receive when you advocate for yourself. If you bring up concerns about feeling undervalued and are met with defensiveness, dismissal, or indifference, it's a clear indication of the environment's inability to support your worth. Healthy environments are open to feedback and willing to address issues of recognition and respect. If your concerns are brushed aside or minimized, it's a sign that the problem runs deeper than a simple misunderstanding. Recognizing undervaluation requires courage because it often means confronting uncomfortable realities about the spaces you occupy and the people you surround yourself with. It's not easy to admit that a relationship, job, or social circle you've invested in does not honor your contributions. However, this recognition is a necessary step toward creating healthier dynamics and reclaiming your sense of self-worth. Avoiding these truths only prolongs the harm they cause. Once you have identified instances of undervaluation, it's important to decide how to respond. In some cases, this may involve addressing the issue directly, setting boundaries, or seeking acknowledgement for your efforts. In other cases, it may mean recognizing that the environment is unlikely to change and deciding whether it is worth staying. This decision requires a careful balance of self-respect and practicality. While it's important to advocate for yourself, it's equally important to recognize when an environment simply cannot or will not value you. It's also essential to understand that being overlooked or undervalued says more about the environment than it does about you. It is not a reflection of your abilities, worth, or contributions. Often, it is a symptom of the other person's or group's inability to appreciate what you bring to the table. Recognizing this distinction can help you separate your self-worth from external validation and maintain your confidence even in challenging situations. Ultimately, recognizing when your contributions are overlooked is an act of self-awareness and self-respect. It requires you to listen to your inner voice, trust your feelings, and take a stand for your worth. It is not about demanding constant praise or validation, but about ensuring that the spaces you occupy align with your values and foster mutual respect. By identifying and addressing instances of undervaluation, you empower yourself to seek environments that honor your efforts and contributions. You deserve to be seen, heard, and appreciated for all that you bring to the world, and recognizing when this isn't happening is the first step toward creating a life that reflects your true worth. Listening to your intuition is a profound and invaluable act of self-trust that can guide you in determining whether you are truly valued in a particular environment. Intuition is often described as a quiet voice or a gut feeling, an inner knowing that operates beyond logic or tangible evidence. It is deeply connected to your subconscious mind, which processes countless subtle cues and experiences, forming a reliable compass for navigating situations where words and actions may not align. Intuition often speaks in subtle ways, and listening to it requires a willingness to tune into your emotions and inner responses. For example, if you consistently feel uneasy, drained, or unfulfilled in a relationship, job, or social setting, these feelings may be your intuition signaling that something is off. These emotions are not random, they arise from an inner awareness that recognizes patterns of behavior or circumstances that may not serve your well-being. Honoring these feelings instead of dismissing them is the first step in understanding what your intuition is trying to communicate. One of the challenges of relying on intuition is that it often conflicts with external pressures or expectations. You may feel compelled to stay in a situation because it looks good on paper, aligns with societal norms, or fulfills a role you believe you should maintain. Yet, despite all these outward signs of success or alignment, your intuition might be telling you otherwise. It may whisper that the job you have isn't allowing you to grow, or that the relationship you are in is eroding your self-esteem. Trusting your intuition means prioritizing this inner voice over external validation, recognizing that it often knows what's best for you even when the evidence isn't immediately clear. Listening to your intuition also requires a willingness to slow down and create space for reflection. In the hustle and noise of everyday life, it's easy to suppress or overlook the subtle nudges of your inner knowing. But when you take time to sit with your feelings, meditate, or journal about your experiences, you give your intuition the opportunity to surface. These moments of stillness allow you to process your experiences more deeply and to identify patterns or feelings you might have missed in the busyness of daily routines. Your intuition often picks up on things your conscious mind might not immediately register, It might sense insincerity in someone's words, a lack of alignment between what they say and what they do, or an imbalance in the energy exchange within a relationship. For example, you might find yourself feeling uneasy after a conversation where nothing overtly negative was said. This feeling isn't baseless, it's your intuition signaling that something about the interaction wasn't right. It's worth taking time to reflect on these moments and explore what your intuition might be perceiving. Another important aspect of trusting your intuition is recognizing that it is a form of self-protection. Your inner voice seeks to guide you away from harm, discomfort, or situations that could diminish your sense of self-worth. It's a built-in mechanism designed to help you navigate complex social and emotional landscapes. When you ignore your intuition, you risk staying in environments or relationships that don't value you, which can lead to long-term harm to your mental and emotional well-being. By listening to it, you empower yourself to make decisions that prioritize your health and happiness. Listening to your intuition doesn't mean making impulsive decisions or acting without reflection. It involves a balance of trust and discernment. When your intuition sends you signals, it's important to pause and assess the situation thoughtfully. Ask yourself what specific feelings or observations are driving your inner response. What patterns have you noticed that align with this feeling? This process not only strengthens your connection to your intuition, but also ensures that your decisions are informed by both emotional and rational insights. Intuition is deeply connected to your self-worth. When you trust your intuition, you affirm that your inner voice is valid and worthy of being heard. This self-trust reinforces your sense of value, reminding you that you have the wisdom to navigate challenging situations and the courage to make decisions that honor your worth. Conversely, ignoring your intuition often leads to regret as you look back and recognize the signs you missed or chose to disregard. Trusting your inner voice is a way of showing up for yourself and committing to your own well-being. There may be times when following your intuition feels risky or uncertain. Perhaps it leads you to end a relationship or leave a job without a clear plan for what's next. These moments of uncertainty can be unsettling, but they also hold the potential for growth and alignment. Intuition often guides you toward paths that are unfamiliar yet deeply necessary for your evolution. Trusting this guidance means embracing the unknown with the confidence that your inner wisdom will continue to lead you in the right direction. Over time, the more you listen to and act on your intuition, the stronger it becomes. Trusting your inner voice is like building a muscle. It requires practice and consistent effort. Each time you honor your intuition, you reinforce the connection between your conscious mind and your deeper knowing. This connection allows you to navigate future challenges with greater ease and confidence as you learn to trust your inner compass even in the face of doubt or opposition. Ultimately, listening to your intuition is an act of self-respect and self-love. It is a recognition that your inner voice is worthy of being heard and that your feelings matter. It empowers you to make choices that align with your values, needs, and aspirations, even when those choices are difficult. Your intuition is always there, a quiet yet steadfast guide, urging you to step away from spaces that don't honor your worth and toward those that celebrate and nurture your true self. Setting boundaries is an essential act of self-respect that reinforces your worth and defines how others are permitted to treat you. Boundaries are not about creating walls to keep people out. They are about building a framework that ensures your emotional, mental, and even physical well-being is preserved. They communicate your needs, values, and limits to others, providing clarity in your relationships and interactions. Establishing and maintaining boundaries is not always easy, but it is a critical step in creating spaces and connections where you feel valued and respected. The process of setting boundaries begins with self-awareness. Before you can communicate your limits to others, you need to understand them yourself. This involves taking the time to reflect on your experiences and identifying patterns of discomfort, resentment, or frustration. These feelings often arise when your boundaries have been crossed. For example, you might feel drained after spending time with someone who consistently demands your attention without reciprocating support. Or you might feel frustrated when your efforts at work go unacknowledged while others receive recognition for similar contributions. These emotional cues are your mind's way of signaling that a boundary needs to be established. Once you have identified your boundaries, the next step is to communicate them clearly and assertively. This can be challenging, especially if you are not accustomed to expressing your needs or if you fear how others might react. However, clarity is key when it comes to boundaries. Be direct and specific about what you need and why it matters. For instance, instead of vaguely stating, I need more space, you could say, I need an hour of uninterrupted time each evening to recharge. Framing your boundary as a positive statement about your needs rather than as a criticism of the other person can make the conversation more constructive. While communicating boundaries is essential, enforcing them is equally important. Simply stating your limits is not enough, you must also follow through when they are tested. This might mean politely but firmly reminding someone of your boundary if they overstep it, or taking more decisive action if the behavior continues. For instance, if a coworker repeatedly interrupts you during your designated focus time despite being informed of your boundary, you might escalate the issue by involving a manager or adjusting your workflow to minimize interruptions. Enforcing boundaries can feel uncomfortable, but it is a necessary step in ensuring they are respected. It's also important to recognize that setting boundaries is not about controlling others, it's about protecting yourself. You cannot dictate how others behave, but you can decide what behaviors you will tolerate and how you will respond when those limits are crossed. For example, if someone frequently speaks to you in a disrespectful tone, you cannot force them to change their behavior, but you can choose to limit your interactions with them or remove yourself from the situation altogether. By focusing on your actions rather than trying to control others, you empower yourself to maintain your boundaries without unnecessary conflict. Setting boundaries is particularly crucial in environments where you feel undervalued. In these situations, boundaries act as a safeguard against further erosion of your self-worth. For example, if your contributions at work are consistently overlooked, you might establish a boundary by limiting the extra hours or effort you put into tasks that go unrecognized. Similarly, in a personal relationship where your emotional support is taken for granted, you might set a boundary by choosing not to engage in one-sided conversations or by requesting reciprocal support. These boundaries serve as a reminder to both yourself and others that your time, energy, and contributions are valuable. Boundaries also play a vital role in preventing burnout. When you constantly prioritize others' needs over your own, or allow yourself to be overburdened by demands, it can lead to physical and emotional exhaustion. Setting boundaries helps you allocate your time and energy in a way that aligns with your values and priorities. For example, saying no to additional responsibilities when your plate is already full is not an act of selfishness. It is a way of ensuring you can show up fully for the commitments that matter most to you. By protecting your well-being, you enhance your ability to contribute meaningfully to the areas of your life that truly deserve your attention. It's natural to encounter resistance when setting boundaries, especially from individuals who have benefited from your lack of them in the past. They may push back, guilt-trip you, or attempt to test your limits. This resistance is not a sign that your boundaries are unreasonable. It is a reflection of their adjustment to the new dynamics you are creating. Staying firm and consistent in the face of this resistance is crucial. Over time, people will come to understand and respect the limits you have set, even if they do not initially agree with them. Boundaries are not static. They may need to be adjusted as circumstances change or as you gain more clarity about your needs. For example, a boundary that worked well in one phase of your life may no longer serve you in another. Regularly reassessing your boundaries ensures they remain relevant and effective. This ongoing process allows you to stay attuned to your evolving self and to make adjustments that reflect your growth and priorities. Setting boundaries is not a selfish act, it is an act of self-preservation and self-respect. It is a way of declaring to yourself and others that your well-being matters. Boundaries create the conditions for healthy, respectful relationships where mutual appreciation can thrive. They also serve as a filter, allowing you to identify and distance yourself from environments or individuals that do not honor your worth. By setting and maintaining boundaries, you empower yourself to take control of your life and to create a reality where you are valued, respected, and supported. This is not just a gift to yourself, but also to those around you, as it sets a standard for authentic and balanced connections.